You have to have like real rigid requirements of yourself where you don't allow yourself to back out of things and you don't allow yourself to slack off. I used to teach martial arts for a living. One of the things that I found incredibly difficult was to reteach people. It was way easier to teach a person with no training than it was to reteach someone with poor training. There's been many, many people that have just put their foot down and said, enough. I'm going to change my life.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 and 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 and 9. This one's for my top 10.
Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you too. You have Michael Jordan level talent at something. So get ready to build discipline, change the wrong patterns, and stay on your path with Joe Rogan and my take on his top 10 rules of success to give you the confidence, motivation, and belief that you need. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule #1, build discipline.
Most of what people do is what we're doing right now. Most of what people do is sit down.
But is that because they don't feel like running around? Because some people, like people who exercise, generally you have to put in a little bit of effort to make yourself go exercise. But a lot of people who are overweight and sick don't have enough energy to do that.
I don't know about that. Some of them maybe, but I think some of them just don't have discipline. There's an issue with that as well. There's also an issue with momentum. You're not used to doing it. It's not a part of your life. It's not something that you're accustomed to pushing yourself. There's been many days where I didn't want to work out. I just didn't feel like I had the energy, and I just forced myself. And I think there's very few people out there that know how to force themselves. That's a learned.
Yeah.
That's a learned skill. It's that kind of discipline and focus. You have to have like real rigid requirements of yourself where you don't allow yourself to back out of things and you don't allow yourself to slack off. And I don't think people put those kind of requirements on themselves as if it's it is a daily principle of life, like what you must get done. You know, you must brush your teeth, you must exercise for 45 minutes. And if you did that, I think you'd be healthier and happier, and your body would perform more smoothly. And if you require your body to do things like that, I think it rises to the occasion. There are very few people that have that kind of discipline. So because of that, they come up with excuses. And excuses are a giant part of the problem. It's not simply a physical health issue. There's also mental aspects of it, and discipline's a big one. I just know way too many people who are weak mentally. And I can't just chalk it off to only, you know, their physical, the way they physically feel, because I felt like shit 100 times, and then I worked out, and then I felt way better.
Yeah,
it's just a fact of life. That's real. You know, you just gotta. And people don't know how to do that. And it's not. And if you're used to doing this, get in your car, sit down, drive to the office, sit down, go to the lunch, sit down. You know, go to the board meeting, sit down. Get in your car on the way home, sit down. Get home in front of the TV, sit down. Then go to the gym, off. They don't have any energy. You know, their body's not. Their body's like, I don't have it in me to do this. And I don't believe that. I think it's a lot of it is the mindset.
Rule #2, change the wrong patterns.
I think most of us are operating on momentum, and I think you learn things as a child, and those become, you know, whatever your personality is, the way whatever thought process you sort of have carved into your mind, like the grooves and patterns that you normally find yourself thinking in. And I equate it to a lot to martial arts training. Like I used to teach martial arts for a living. One of the things that I found incredibly difficult was to reteach people. It was way easier to teach a person with no training than it was to reteach someone with poor training. So when someone has poor training, they have these paths carved in their movements and their thought process, and when they're in a situation, they fall back on those patterns, and it's extremely difficult to get people out of that and learn to do things correctly. But if you can teach them how to do things correctly from the beginning, then they naturally like, this is the stressful situation. Here comes the problem. Here's the issue. What's the technique? Now you know it, and it's locked into your brain. You know the right pathway. Whereas like, don't go to the technique you've been using all your life. Now use a new technique and remember to manage that situation under pressure. I think that's how most of us are handling our lives. We're handling our lives with poor techniques and poor management skills and these paths that are carved in, that are infantile and that are essentially like the remnants and the echoes of when you were a teenager or even younger than that, and then maybe your parents and the learned behavior that you see watching them, and maybe they weren't so good at managing life either, but these patterns are carved into your brain and you find comfort in them because you know where they're going, and so you slide right into them. And then as an adult, you start trying to remap your consciousness and remap those patterns. And in doing that, it's very difficult to sort of rethink how you think.
Rule number 3, stay on your path.
Have you ever heard Tony Robbins talk about changing paths in life? He had a really interesting analogy. He talks about like you're going 2 cars going exactly the same, or a boat rather, 2 boats going exactly the same direction, but one boat just takes a 2-degree turn, just 2 degrees.
Yeah.
As they go further down, the one boat that took the 2-degree turn is going to go wider and wider away from the original path. And that each decision that you make that's a good decision takes you closer. Like, even though it's just like you're just steering your ship just as you go out, it's going to be a much different path, a much different end than if you just stayed on the original path.
Rule number 4, do cardio.
And any long-term cardiovascular exercise, you get this. It's like we did, last October, we did the Sober October thing where we had this crazy fitness challenge. So all of us were doing cardio like 5 hours a day, like really crazy amounts of cardio. And one of the things that Tom Segura and I both agreed on is like the amount of internal chatter dissipates to 0. Like you have no anxiety. It goes, I didn't realize I had any anxiety until that happened. And then I was like, God, it goes to 0. It goes to nothing. Like when you do like 5 hours on a treadmill or you just run for 5, when it's done, man, there's this like peace of mind that comes with that. This release of endorphins that's incredibly addictive because that feeling is so pleasing. So it's not that it doesn't feel good to get out of bed and to just push when you don't want to, but the end result feels amazing.
Also, if you want to have more self-love, check out my 254 series. It's free. The link to join is in the description below.
It's good to treat other people the way you would like to be treated yourself. It's like a golden rule, and there's a reason for it, and that reason is that we're connected.
Rule number 5, stop making excuses.
There's been many people that have just put their foot down and said, enough, I'm going to change my life. And they don't take any excuses, and they feel way better. Diet is most certainly a part of that, but there's also a discipline aspect. And these things are not mutually exclusive. They exist together. They're all together. And they work symbiotically. The way your mindset affects the choices you make with your diet. And the mindset also affects the choices you make in terms of like whether or not you require yourself to exercise. And I think these are critical aspects that people like to gloss over or they like to make excuses about. And they get very angry if you don't accept those excuses. And that's a sign that they're trying to enforce this standard and this idea and push it on you and give themselves an excuse. And it's one of the reasons why they get angry. It's one thing if someone has a legit physical issue like you do, but there's a lot of people who do not. They just have poor diet choices, they have a sedentary lifestyle, and they have the momentum of this sedentary lifestyle that's holding them back. They're accustomed to being lazy.
Rule number 6, don't be too competitive.
I don't think you should ever be very competitive with people who are not competitive with you. So here's a perfect example.
That's an interesting thought.
When I do jujitsu, I'm a black belt in jujitsu. If I do jujitsu with a white belt, I treat them very kindly. I might tap them out a little bit, but there's no way I roll with them the way I would roll with another black belt.
Well, that's fighting. There's a difference.
But it's not. It's a game.
Different.
It's a game.
Okay, I mean,
jiu-jitsu is a game.
Respect.
So if I'm rolling with someone and they're making mistakes, I'll correct their mistakes. If I wanted to, if I'm rolling with someone who's a white belt, I could just cut right through them. Just keep cutting right through them. But you know what you do with them?
Yeah.
You discourage people from doing it. And it's not really fair because you're not getting anything out of it either. All you're getting out of it, you're practicing like a grappling dummy. And like occasionally, maybe that's a good thing to do. I feel like once you get into the blue belt and purple belt range, then I'm going to go with you 100%.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with someone who's not really competitive with you, it doesn't make sense. You're not getting anything out of it, really.
Rule number 7, read autobiographies.
We gather information from other people's life experiences in a very unique way. And it's one of the reasons why people really enjoy autobiographies. It's one of the reasons why people really enjoy truly reflective, introspective thinking, because we can pick out little gems in ourselves. So even though you might be talking in your meditation book about things that other people have talked about in meditation books, you're talking about it from your unique personal experience.
Right.
And when someone reads that or hears you say it, you get something intangible out of that.
Rule number 8, start small.
From like my perspective, I've seen my dad, and he was very like, you can see from the videos from 2014 before he started going low carb and everything, he was carrying about 50 extra pounds.
Right.
And he didn't exercise. And he didn't have enough energy to exercise.
That's not
but
true.
But it didn't look
that's
like
not true.
that.
That's not true. He just didn't do it.
No, I don't believe that.
When you say he didn't have enough energy to exercise, did he walk around?
Well, yeah,
Did
but
he
you can
walk to-
drag yourself through things.
And you can drag yourself through an exercise routine. You can. Oh, you most certainly can. You most certainly can. You don't have to do a lot. You just have to do something. You walk up hills. You jump a little rope. You take a little tiny kettlebell. You do a couple cleans and presses. You do a few push-ups. You do a few sit-ups. You get your blood pumping. You're moving. You're alive. You're exercising. To say you don't have enough extra energy to exercise, that's crazy. Can you walk to the refrigerator? Then you can exercise. I'm not saying that you have to run marathons. You can exercise, and everyone should exercise.
Rule number 9, belief.
I've been in the trenches as an actor for a long time. I'm like, these things don't happen, you know?
Yeah.
They don't happen. And then it happened. I was like,
Well, they occasionally happen.
yeah.
I feel like you will to happen. Like
Yeah.
with my whole life, I just feel like, you know, you got to like will it and just believe it. And if you don't, then it really won't. It has to, the mojo all has to line up.
Yeah.
It helps. It helps if you believe it. But it doesn't. There's a lot of people out there that watched The Secret and thought, I'm going to change my life.
Yeah.
And then nothing happened.
Yeah. No, I think it's essential to believe, and then there's still a lot of shit. But if you don't believe, you good luck.
Yeah, there's a vibration that you have to catch. You have to be on a frequency, and all these things have to align together in order for it to be successful.
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is do stand-up comedy.
It's only good for me. You're not supposed to live anywhere where they let you drink 24 hours a day. That's f***ed up. And they give you free booze when you're gambling. No, f*** you. That's crazy. How is that the law? And it's all Red Bull plus something, so you got a chemical battle going on in your consciousness. Half of you sped up, the other half is f***ed up, so it's just seesaw battle retardation. When you're on Red Bull and whatever, and it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, you don't even know who the f*** you are. You got one cylinder that's just moving your feet in certain directions and making up decisions on what you're gonna eat. We went to the Spearmint Rhino Strip Club at 9:30 a.m. on a Thursday. Yeah. And it was packed. That's what was really depressing. That's one of those dumb Red Bull and vodka moments where you're too stupid to be making your own decisions. We were eating breakfast. We were down to 2-word sentences. We were just like, waffles, You know how you get there? You know how you get there? You get to those, and nobody says anything for a minute, and somebody goes, word. And all I'm thinking of is sleep, man. All I'm thinking is, oh, I can't wait to hit that pillow. It's gonna be so nice to go to sleep. And I hear, hey man, you guys wanna go to the Rhino? And I'm like, that's my voice.
Now I have a special bonus clip from Joe on how to practice martial arts that I think you're gonna enjoy. But before that, it's time for the 3-point landing questions. Let's go from just watching the video to taking action. Here we go. Question number 1, where do you need to believe more in yourself? Number 2, what's one small start that you can take right after watching this video? And number 3, where do you need to stop making excuses? And if you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Give me a hashtag believe down in the comments as well.
One of the things you said is that it's good to kind of explore your boundaries when it comes to fear. This is something actually that my meditation teacher has said to me before, and it made me realize I think I need to get in there and start pushing it a little bit in this in the tank, because it will help me in lots of areas of my life, because when you don't test those boundaries, your life becomes smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And that happens to people with panic.
I think it happens just people in general, and I think it's one of the reasons why people fall into panic is because they don't have enough experience with stressful situations to the point where they can just relax and just let it happen. And that's one of the things one of the reasons why I think martial arts training is very good for people, not just for the self-defense aspect of it, but for the aspect of just dealing with stressful situations on a regular basis to the point where you're very comfortable with them. And then you realize that the consequences of this it's not really as bad as you think it is. Like most people are terrified of physical confrontation, but when you have physical confrontation on a regular basis, especially through my favorite, which is jiu-jitsu training, because there's no striking, so you don't get hit in the head. You're not worried about brain damage or any of that stuff. It's just basically grappling. But that through the continual process of testing yourself and stress and regular life stresses sort of become diminished.
If you want 10 more rules from Tony Robbins, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.